Ladies and gentlemen, brace yourselves. What you're about to hear is not just breaking news, it's a political earthquake. 4 months, even years, the name Ibrahim Traoré echoed across Africa with thunderous hope and fiery resistance. But no one, absolutely no one, expected that Donald J. Trump, the 45th President of the United States and one of the most polarizing figures in global politics, would step up and make this statement. This isn't just a handshake. This isn't just a tweet. This is a moment that shocked Washington, electrified Africa, and left both allies and critics speechless. Here's what happened. Trump, live broadcast excerpt. I've been watching that young man, Traoré, closely. Very closely. I don't care what the media says, he's strong. He's not a puppet. He's not begging the West for favors. He's got guts. And believe me, guts are rare these days. Especially in politics. Especially in Africa. Crowd reacts in silence. Reporters glance at each other. Trump continues. You see, they told me Traoré was a rebel, a danger, a radical. But when I looked at the facts, when I watched him speak, I saw something else. I saw a leader. A warrior. A man who stands up to globalist pressure. Sound familiar? Pause. Trump nods. That's why I'm saying this today. Whether people like it or not, President Ibrahim Traoré is Africa's rising power. And I respect that. The room froze. U.S. officials blinked in disbelief. African leaders were texting one another. CNN immediately went live. Social media exploded. Hashtag Traoréizing. Hashtag Trump Traoré. Hashtag Africa Strong. But behind closed doors, something much deeper was happening. Because just 72 hours before Trump's statement, secret communications between his team and a high-level Burkinabe delegation had already taken place in a private estate outside Florida. Sources say there were no cameras, no press, no diplomatic translators. Just 3 people on each side, and one mission, power realignment. One U.S. strategist who attended the meeting later told an insider, Trump sees Traoré not just as a president. He sees him as a symbol. An anti-globalist symbol with teeth. How did this happen? That's the real mystery. Just months ago, Trump was silent on African affairs. He avoided comment on Burkina Faso. He dodged questions about Traoré's revolutionary reforms. So what changed? Some say it was a confidential report handed to Trump by an African-American intelligence officer who had just returned from Ouagadougou. Others say it was a video clip of Traoré's historic speech to West African youth, the one that went viral, where he said, "We are no longer kneeling. We are standing. And we are building our continent with or without the West." That clip reportedly brought Trump to his feet. He replayed it. Twice. He saw himself in Traoré. The outsider. The fighter. The one who speaks when others are afraid. Trump doesn't care about political correctness. Neither does Traoré. That was the connection. But not everyone is happy. Within minutes of Trump's speech, panic erupted in sections of the U.S. State Department. An internal memo was leaked. Its title, Possible Consequences of U.S. Endorsement of Traoré, Risk of Breaking NATO-AU Alignment. African Union leaders scrambled to respond. The French government reportedly called an emergency session. The European Commission went into what one insider called quiet crisis mode. One question kept echoing through diplomatic corridors. What is Trump planning with Traoré? But the story doesn't end here. Because while Trump was making headlines in D.C., Traoré had already landed in an undisclosed location. Not in Africa. Not in Europe. But somewhere no one expected. And what he did next left the world breathless. While headlines exploded over Trump's public recognition of President Ibrahim Traoré, the man himself had vanished from Burkina Faso's official radar. No press statements. No scheduled appearances. No flight records. But whispers grew louder. Military-grade jets were seen landing at an obscure base in the Caucasus Mountains, a region known not just for its harsh winters but for hosting off-the-books geopolitical meetings for decades. President Traoré was there. And he wasn't alone. Inside a subterranean compound carved into solid rock, a closed-door summit was underway. Among the few invited, a top aide from the Kremlin, a Chinese military intelligence advisor, a representative from Venezuela's shadow economic ministry, and most shockingly, a former NSA official, disavowed by Washington, but with deep roots inside U.S. cyber operations. What was Traoré doing in that room? A source close to the meeting claimed. Traoré didn't come to ask for support. He came with leverage. He brought data, coordinates, internal memos from European intelligence agencies that had been monitoring West Africa for over 12 years. He laid it on the table and said, "This is how they plan to divide Africa again. Not through war, through manipulation, currency, drones, food control, media." The room fell silent. Then Traoré reportedly looked the Chinese advisor dead in the eye and said, "You want a partner? Not a pawn. I came to talk business, not to beg." Back in the U.S., Trump's own advisors were now split. Some warned, "You just legitimized the man who may redefine African independence for the next 50 years. Others saw opportunity. "We either walk with him now, or we lose Africa forever." It wasn't just political anymore. It was philosophical. Traoré had forced a line in the sand. And Trump, whether impulsively or by design, crossed it. Behind closed doors, chaos erupts in France. Leaked audio from a top-level French Defense Council revealed what insiders feared. If Traoré forms a coalition with anti-Western powers, our influence in West Africa is finished. Finished. But the most chilling moment in the recording came from a trembling voice near the end. And now, even Trump has switched sides? Back to Traoré. After the summit in the Caucasus, he boarded a jet with no insignia. Flight path scrambled. Transponder off. His destination? Unknown. But hours later, a surveillance satellite captured a jet descending into the Atacama Desert, Chile. Why Chile? Analysts quickly discovered something alarming. A recently constructed data center, funded in secret by a consortium of non-Western tech firms, with direct satellite access and quantum encryption. This was no ordinary trip. Was Traoré preparing for something digital? Something global? Or was he simply staying one step ahead of the world's most powerful intelligence agencies? A former CIA operative spoke out anonymously. "I've been in this game for 25 years. I've watched regimes rise and fall. But I've never seen a head of state move like this. He's not reacting. He's orchestrating. He's 5 steps ahead." And Donald Trump? He's gone quiet. No tweets. No press. But his team is reportedly working behind the scenes, drafting a new Africa strategy that would cut out traditional diplomacy completely. A source in Mar-a-Lago leaked one page from the draft. It was titled, "The Traoré Doctrine, Building New Alliances Beyond the Deep State." In Africa, the youth are rising. From Lagos to Dakar, from Nairobi to Accra, millions of young Africans are holding up signs. "We stand with Traoré." Trump saw it. Now the world must. Africa is not for sale. The internet is ablaze with questions. Will Trump make a private visit to Burkina Faso? Is Traoré building an international coalition outside UN oversight? Is a new global alignment being formed without Europe at the table? But one final twist shocked everyone. Just hours before this script was published, a massive cyber breach hit the European Central Bank's African Affairs Division. Files were leaked. Among them, a document marked Eyes Only Operation, Falcon Shadow. It described a joint Western contingency plan to destabilize rising African leadership by targeting supply chains, narrative control, and covert surveillance. The top target listed? Traoré Ibrahim. Primary disruptor. Must be isolated. The document is now circulating online under a single headline. They fear him because they can't control him. And just like that, the world now waits. What will Trump do next? Where is Traoré going? What was in those encrypted files? Who else is switching sides in silence? This is no longer just politics. It's a battle of systems, of empires, of futures. And the next move is coming. The Falcon Shadow leak spreads like fire. Within 36 hours, the document labeled Operation Falcon Shadow had been downloaded over 3 million times. African activists, tech insiders, and journalists scrambled to decode every line. But one sentence stood out across the globe. Subject: Traoré poses a threat to economic harmonization, NATO-AU cooperation, and strategic mineral control. Initiate narrative destabilization protocol by Q3. That one line shattered any illusion of peace. Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube exploded. Hashtag Traoré targeted. Hashtag New Colonial Agenda. Hashtag Africa Unchained. Hashtag Trump breaks in. Hashtag Deep State Divide. Washington, White House in turmoil. President Joe Biden, under pressure from NATO allies, convened an emergency security briefing. According to sources close to the situation, multiple intelligence officials expressed alarm over Trump's private communications with Ibrahim Traoré. One official was quoted in an internal memo. If Trump continues these unofficial diplomatic channels, we risk a geopolitical shift that NATO cannot reverse. Traoré is not just resisting France, he's creating a new order. That same day, Fox News ran the headline, "Trump allies secretly back Africa's new leader. Is Traoré the global right's new poster boy?" Meanwhile, MSNBC issued a chilling counter. Traoré, the most dangerous man you've never heard of, and why Trump loves him. But the real shock came from Langley. In a move no one expected, a CIA whistleblower known only as Spectre released a classified audio file. The voice? A U.S. defense strategist discussing a plan to digitally erase Traoré's media presence within 6 months, using algorithm manipulation, coordinated content bans, and AI-generated disinformation. The audio ends with a phrase that now haunts the internet. "If we can't kill him, we'll erase him." But they underestimated Traoré. Because while the West planned digital warfare, Traoré was executing a digital revolution. In a secret tech hub in Windhoek, Namibia, Traoré's team of African and South American engineers unveiled Project JUA, a blockchain-based communications network that operates independent of Western satellites. Designed to resist takedowns, censorship, and outside surveillance, it's being hailed as Africa's answer to the NSA. Even Elon Musk weighed in on X. If Project JUA works, it's not just disruptive, it's historic. Africa leading its own tech future? Respect. A massive break in Paris. French citizens stormed the gates of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs after it was revealed that billions of euros had been funneled into covert African destabilization programs for over a decade, programs now unraveling thanks to Traoré's exposure. One viral video showed a protester screaming, "We colonized them once. Now they're waking up and we're scared." Macron hasn't appeared publicly in 72 hours. Meanwhile, Trump's move stuns the world again. From his Florida estate, Trump posted a single message to his 170 million followers. The deep state fears strong African leaders. That's why they fear Traoré. I say let him lead. America first. Africa free. That tweet triggered an earthquake. The African diaspora lit up with support. Tens of thousands of African Americans began organizing under a new hashtag. Hashtag Diaspora Rising. Mass rallies are now being planned in Atlanta, Chicago, and New York. Guest speakers? Pan-African scholars, whistleblowers, and possibly President Traoré himself via satellite. In a dark room in Germany, something else is brewing. An elite intelligence operative, codenamed Nix, leaked an image showing 5 world leaders in a private video call. Trump, Traoré, Viktor Orbán, Javier Milei of Argentina, and a mysterious black silhouette believed to be a top advisor to the BRICS intelligence bloc. The file name: New Axis, Operation Sovereign Earth. The implication? A non-aligned global power structure is being born, outside NATO, outside the UN, outside the IMF. And then, the coup attempt. Just hours ago, masked paramilitaries stormed a government radio station in Burkina Faso. Gunfire echoed through Ouagadougou. But it wasn't just a local power grab. Traoré's forces intercepted encrypted radio traffic. The attackers were speaking in French and Polish. Within 45 minutes, the coup was crushed. But Traoré made a national address, raw, furious, unforgettable. They want to erase me because I won't kneel. They sent their dogs in the night. But we are awake now. Africa is not your property. We will never be your laboratory. Not again. Millions wept. Millions screamed. And millions waited for what he would do next. And the mystery deepens. An unverified video emerged showing Trump on a private call, saying only this: when the storm hits, make sure Traoré is protected. We're gonna need him. What storm? What protection? And what exactly does Trump know that the world doesn't?